What's up, Exiles? It's Kacey here. Today I'll be doing a video on the PvP meta in Conan Exiles. This is applicable to PC, not console, and is for Exile lands, not the Isle of Sipta. Also, this is from the perspective of someone who plays pretty much solely official servers. At least since Age of War, I've only touched official servers, really. So this is coming from someone who's dealing with the current Q-lock, roll spam, spear meta. So unfortunately, the state of the game right now is very bland in terms of what equipment, what weapons are meta, and the skill difference in the game is basically non-existent. Obviously there's gaps in terms of game knowledge with old and new players, but in terms of skill in actual PvP combat, the game has never been worse, especially on official servers. But all that aside, this is the PvP meta for PC official servers, and let's get into it. Starting off with crafted armors, this right here is what I like to use for bombing, farming, just a encumbrance build armor. So we've got the Godbreaker helm, which has a lot of armor, bit of extra stamina, and also has a built-in gas sandstorm mask. We've got the perfected heavy pauldron. As opposed to a standard heavy armor that has a 5% bonus to agility, this one has extra armor because it is a perfected piece. So that's why I picked that one. And then we have the Redeemed Legion gauntlets for extra health, and also the temperature resist. Same with the Godbreaker helm, we have 3 cold resist and 1 heat resist, and then we balance that out with the chilled Godbreaker leggings, which have the 3 heat resist and 1 chilled resist. So that gives us immunity to basically any environment, volcano or ice. Same with the champion boots, they give us a decent amount of resistance. And these champion boots, these are actually really good, and it's easy to farm armor scraps to make these armor pieces now. You actually get a lot from the Warmaker dungeon. It's very profitable now. But these boots, they actually remove cripple. So with cripple being so prevalent, with Great Axe and Spear both applying cripple on the heavy attacks, these boots are really good in allowing you to stay moving at full speed. I've just got this here because this is just going to be your easy standard you gotta go somewhere harsh and scout a base or go farm something. This is gonna be the cheap version of this. Decent armor, and you're gonna get the temperature resist, extreme temperature resist. So you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere in either of these sets. So these are good options for bombing, farming, etc. Scouting even. Maybe this one's a bit too expensive for scouting, but this is a good cheap set if you got to look under the frozen lake for vaults, etc. This is just the go-to Redeemed Legion. Moving on, we've got heavy PvP armor. I can't believe we're in this meta right now. Okay, so right now with the current stamina system, there's very little downside to going heavy armor now. I still prefer light because I feel like you can get more rolls, you can get more attacks in more frequently, but for the most part, the advantage to going light armor now is very minimal. So this is the standard. This is not the standard actually. The standard is this. Most people are going Redeemed Legion helmet, Void Forged Dragon ribs, Silent Legion medium gauntlets. The reason they go medium is because the heavy Heavy Void Forge actually give health. These give strength damage. So this is a maximum damage build, and obviously these weigh a bit less, so it's easier to get away with this piece on a PvP spec where you're not going into carry capacity. Leggings of Kurak, even though they are a light piece, we're going them for the extra stamina, so you can run for longer. Champion boots, again, we've got the cleansing effect with the cleansing effect of cripples. But alternatively, instead of going for the 8% here and 8% there of the damage, you can swap that out for the Void Forge helmet, which gives plus 28 health, and it's actually going to give you more armor on top of that. And you can also swap out the gauntlets for a set of heavy Void Forge, which is going to give you another 48 health, and is also going to have a lot more armor. When it comes to a light kit, same standard kit as always: Silent Legion helmet, Silent Legion light pauldron, or Void Forge light. Void Forge Dragonhide braces. You can go this or Silent Legion light gauntlets. At the moment, I'm preferring this because you're not carrying as much for PvP anymore, I feel like. The variety, the equipment that you're needing to use, especially on officials, fights are over so quick, it's not even worth bringing that many heals, because fights are just over as soon as they start with Q-lock roll spam. So I prefer these for a bit of extra survivability. But if you are using a bow and you're wanting to carry some arrows, definitely go Silent Legion light gauntlets. Or if you're wanting to carry a few bombs, etc. If you're carrying some extra stuff, definitely go these. Leggings of Kurak, standard. Void Forge Dragonhide boots can be swapped out for boots of Kurak, again for the carry capacity. If you want to go Void Forge Dragonhide braces and boots of Kurak, then you can do that. Alternatively, you can go Void Forge Dragonhide boots with Silent Legion gauntlets, or just both Void Forge. Honorable mention to Robe of Kurak, which gives plus 38 health. It does have less armor than the Silent Legion and Void Forge counterparts, but you do get a bit of extra survivability from the health in exchange for the damage that you would be getting from the other pieces. So some people like to run this for the extra survivability. I prefer the extra damage. Now, for agility, obviously the ranger set is still king. You unlock this by doing the Dungeon Delver journey, which is unlocked by going to the dregs. You'll go to the dregs, you'll get the unlock for the journey, and then you have to complete a series of dungeons in order to complete it and unlock this armor set. Each piece of this set gives 8% agility weapon damage and 7 stamina when crafted with a tier 4 armor. Generally, you'll go Leggings of Kurak instead of the Ranger pants. Again, extra stamina, but it's not really important. You're getting extra stamina on every piece anyway, so it's kind of up to you. And then Spider Climb boots, if you've watched one of my previous videos on them, they actually do increase your climb speed, not only reducing the stamina drain when climbing. So these will improve your vertical mobility. Alternatively, you can just go the Ranger boots. What I like to do in this meta, because the damage is so high anyway, you don't really need to min-max anymore, and I like to have a little bit of extra survivability. What I'll do is I'll go Ranger piece, and I'll actually just go for the Ranger boots, and that way I'm getting the 48 health from the helmet, 48 health from the braces, stamina from leggings of Kurak, and then I'm just getting some extra damage from the chest and boots. And that's going to be it for crafted armors. I'm not going to go through the legendary armors because they basically haven't changed at all in forever. So I will be going through legendary weapons because they have undergone some changes recently, and because the meta shift. I'll talk about that when we get to it. Moving on to crafted melee weapons. The only weapons that matter right now are spears and great axes. That's my opinion. Those are the only really relevant weapons in this meta. This is Q-lock, roll poke. Great axes, I think, are even below in tier. Like, they are not even that great. You could just run around with a spear, in all honesty. My top crafted spear is going to be the Gravedigger. With the changes to how the recipes are given out in the Unnamed City from the library, you actually get the recipes sequentially now, and you're guaranteed to get a recipe that you haven't gotten before. So it's actually really easy to farm up some fragments and get a recipe that you're after. In this case, you want to be getting the Gravedigger, and that is because with the removal of the traders from Mechamosis, it's no longer possible to buy steel in bulk, which makes hardened steel weapons more expensive to craft, which means that in general, star weapons are now cheaper and easier to craft. They both have the same stats. There's no difference there. They both have the same range. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that the Gravedigger has a wider hitbox at the end. So not longer, but actually wider. I think it has a similar sized hitbox to the Lemurian Trident. But all these have the same range. Lemurian Trident just can't apply poison. These two can apply poison. Lemurian Trident can't because it actually has... you'll see the cripple effect there. It has a bonus cripple, so as well as the cripple on its heavy attack, it also has a cripple on every attack, and that stacks with its heavy attack cripple. So it has a stronger cripple, irrelevant if the person you're hitting is using champion boots, but it is a nice cripple if it is effective on your target. The Ancient Pike has been changed. They nerfed it. / fixed it. It took them long enough. So this is still a decent, really budget spear, but I think now you'll be skipping this, and you'll just be going Gravedigger, Lemurian Pike. And if you really want to spend the day on scales and alchemical base, then you can craft yourself some Lemurian Tridents and, you know, get that bonus cripple. In terms of great axes, it's just the Star Metal Great Axe, of course, and all the DLC variants. This is going to be your best two-handed axe. Not anything changed there. It's still a decent weapon. And better than 90% of melee weapons, but again, with the Q-lock and the roll and the way that stamina is at the moment, spears are just outperforming everything by a mile. They come out faster, and this is particularly overbearing at the moment because of the changes to hyper armor and the staggers. So every weapon, even like the heavier weapons like hammers and the like, have very little hyper armor, which means that faster weapons can stagger and interrupt the attacks a lot more frequently and a lot more easily now. So you're looking for weapons with range, and you're looking for weapons with quick attacks, and that's what the spear has. The Great Axe it just feels too slow. Even though it's one of the faster two-handed weapons, it just feels too slow. You're always getting interrupted when you're trying to use it. When you do get a hit off, yeah, the damage is significant, and can really turn a fight. But in general, pike is the way to go. Moving on to the ranged crafted weapons, we still just got the Kari bow, guys. Again, this is exile lands only that I'm talking about. For Isle of Sipter, it's a different matter. And then for crafted arrows, we've got the Serpent Man arrow and the Star Metal arrow, which both have the same damage values. So it just depends what materials you're wanting to craft with. And also, Star Metal does bonus damage to Guardian Golems, so that's something to keep in mind. When it comes to your specialist arrows, Explosive, Noxious, obviously for raiding and also for finishing off kills on low health targets. Smoke arrows for obstruction. Acid arrows, so that you can still deal damage to targets if they are wearing a gas/sandstorm mask. When it comes to attachments, guys, I like to use bulk plating for light armor. Bulk plating adds weight to the pieces that it's applied to, but also has the highest additional armor value, as opposed to master armor plating, which adds a bit of extra armor, but doesn't also add weight to what you're wearing. So I usually reserve this for either light armor that's being used in combination with heavy armor, such as the Kurak pants, or I'll save it for medium armor pieces, but I don't think medium armor is meta at the moment. I think you're better off just going for heavy if you are going to go for more armor. In which case, I recommend using armor reduction kits and gliding joints. Generally with heavy armor, I'll go for 2 armor reduction kits and 3 gliding joints. With light armor, I'll go 3 bulked plating with 2 gliding joints. And these will just allow you to climb further because it reduces the amount of stamina that you use when you are climbing. Every weapon in this video has the master weapon fitting applied. This adds an additional 5 damage and 12 armor penetration. When it comes to buffs, the meta buffs are still the same. Elixir of Might for strength builds, Elixir of Grace for agility builds. You'll want to carry around some set antidotes. A lot of the weapons that, a lot of the legendaries that you'll find now have a diseased effect. This can be cleansed by set antidotes. So these will cleanse poison and diseased effects. And then you'll want to be farming Scorpion Queen Poison to apply on the weapons that you can. Again, a lot of legendaries, they already have their own special effects that they apply. But when it comes to your standard crafted weapons, crafted spears, you'll definitely want to be using Scorpion Queen Poison to maximize your damage. And then when it comes to the food buffs, we've got the salted pork for strength and salted exquisite meat. Now there are other options. You can go for buffs. Commonly you'll see carry capacity buffs. I'd say that's the only other relevant buff is carry capacity. So you can go the elixir of numbing and the lasting feast for carry capacity buffs. But generally you want to be maximizing your damage, because fights on official are really just reduced to a coin flip of who wins the Q-lock click battle. So maximizing your damage, maximizing your armor, poisons, antidotes, all that is key to winning fights. Just a quick rundown of the different crafter thralls, because a lot of new players are confused at how I get the damage numbers that I have on these weapons and also the armor values. when you find a named crafter thrall, they're gonna have their name and then they're gonna have a profession below. And the profession you're looking for blacksmiths is bladesmith. And when you tame them, they'll have this little indicator of the sword. This increases the base damage of the weapon. There'll be other blacksmiths that have a shield with a break in it, and that increases the armor pen. But it's really unbalanced in Conan Exiles. The armor pen that you gain from that blacksmith, that variation of blacksmith, is so negligible that a bladesmith, which adds base damage, just wins out every time. This is also compounded by the fact that buffs work on a percentage base, so you're really looking to get the most base damage on your weapon as you can, because that's what's going to be multiplied by your buffs, by your perks, by the pieces of armor that you wear. When it comes to bows, you'll want to find the Bowmaker Thrall again with that sword or dagger icon, which adds to the base damage. So that carpenter is going to be the Bowmaker that you'll be looking for as a profession. And when it comes to armor, you're looking for this icon, which is a shieldwright. That is the profession you're looking for, shieldwright. And this is going to give the most additional armor possible. Now that all the crafted weapons and armors are out of the way, moving on to melee legendaries. Now, as I said before, spear is really the only relevant melee weapon at this point. At least when it comes to PvP combat. Maudlin is going to be the top tier of spears, not only because it's the highest damage spear in the game, but it's also the easiest legendary spear to farm. All these weapons here, all 7 weapons, these are all found in the Warmaker dungeon, or Clail's stronghold, and these are all quite easy to farm. Maudlin you'll get from one of the Giant Kings, same with Nortus and Runnersun. These are all from the same Giant King. You have a 1 in 4 chance to get one of these weapons, as well as another weapon, which is a one-handed sword. Quake is a chance to drop when you kill the arena champion inside the Warmaker dungeon. Annihilator and Worldbreaker are both a high chance to drop from one of the skeleton white bosses before entering the arena. And the Sword of Crom you can actually farm from the Warmaker's dungeon now, because they have added an additional skeleton boss to the dungeon before you reach the Giant King, and he has a chance to drop the Sword of Crom. But again, these are good for thralls, and they're good for players if you need to be using a one-handed weapon, say if you're fighting in the water. But they're also good because of their high armor penetration for certain bosses in the game that are hard to melt otherwise. But apart from that, these weapons I don't think are that relevant in the current meta. I'll be sticking to this. All these other weapons here are either from legendary chests that you'll unlock with skeleton keys, or in the case of Scythe of Thag, just a really rare low drop rate. Momentum is the best mace. Unintelligible is nice. It has a bit of extra armor pen. The Impaler is probably one of my favorite spears because of the gouging effect, which is like a stacking bleed effect. Basically it's bleed for weapons that don't traditionally have bleed. And Gavaine's Rusty Pike, it has a diseased effect, little lower damage, and diseased effect, it doesn't have DPS like poison does, but it lasts a long time if they don't have antidotes to cleanse it. which means that they're not able to climb, and it can interrupt their glutton for punishment healing, etc. So I don't think it's as oppressive as stacks of poison, but it is a nice effect. If they don't have antidotes, it can help you out a bit. And then Scythe of Thag, it's gonna be the best two-handed axe in the game. You can't apply a poison to this because it does apply bleed instead, but only one stack. Unlike gouging, which stacks up to 20, bleed, when it's on weapons that don't traditionally stack bleed, generally it only stack up to 1 bleed. So minimal damage, but it will stop climbing if the tick is right. Moving on to melee agility weapons. Now, I don't have an agility weapon section for the crafted weapons just because I don't think it's really relevant at all. These 2 katanas are really easily farmable in the dregs. There's a new spider boss that can be found in there, and these have a good chance of dropping. Aside from that, these weapons aren't really good at all in the meta right now. They are usable, and you will want to use them if you are going an encumbrance agility build. Like, obviously you are going to want to resort to these at some point, but really the 2 main weapons in here are going to be the Black Dragon Pike and Vaulting Pole. 2 of the strongest weapons in the game, just because of the versatility that agility weapons offer, because you can go an encumbrance build, you can go for a damage build with points in grit, so you have more endurance, so you have more armor, more defense. You can go a bow with this, so you have the bow and spear, and if you're going the Kari bow, obviously you want to be going an agility build, which pairs really nicely with an agility spear, so you're not having to invest points into strength necessarily. You're not having to worry about which weapon you're buffing more with your buffs and all that kind of stuff. So agility spears are really strong. I prefer the Vaulting Pole, even though it has less damage, because it doesn't have a special effect that applies. It means you can apply poison to it. Black Dragon Pike, again, has the bleed effect, only stacks up to 1. Not a really useful effect, but hey, it'll stop climbing every so often. Musashi's Black Blade is the best katana in the game, and actually not just in terms of stats, but the katana is one of the fastest weapons at doing PvE content as well. If you want to melt bosses quickly, this is the way to go. Actually, any katana is the way to go. Thanks to Call Me Valor, he did a really good video on weapon DPS against bosses, so be sure to check that out. But basically, in conclusion, katanas are the fastest weapons for melting bosses, and Musashi's Black Blade is at the top of that. I'm not really going to talk about these other weapons. I don't think they're entirely relevant. They're in the game, and you're bound to get them at some point or the other. But they're not. You're not going to be running a PvP build with these intentionally. In my opinion, you'll want to use a spear and maybe a great axe if you are going for a PvP build. These are like what you resort to if you are going to farming build, if you are encumbrance, and you need an agility weapon. Sword of Champions can now be found in the Volcano. One of the Serpent Men bosses can drop the Sword of Champions, but again, it's a short sword. agility weapon. I don't rate it that highly. I don't think it's important for the meta right now. And last but not least, we have legendary bows, or in the case of the Hollowbone, a unique bow for whatever reason. This unique bow happens to be one of the best and most prevalent finds in the Exile lands. So if you are looking for a bow to use before you get a bow maker, before you get Kari Steel and the recipe unlock, Hollowbone bow for agility is the way to go. Reach of the Red Mother is still the best bow on the Exile lands, but really low drop rate. Pristine Kari bow is second, but again really low drop rate. Splinter, Frost Shot, and the Huntress. These are all legendary chest drops, and you're bound to get them every so often, so generally I'll find myself using them just whenever the situation calls. They're not the best, they're not the greatest, but they get the job done. For strength builds, you can use any of these. Decato's Voice is going to be the most viable one to farm, but again, there's not huge variation in the legendary bows. None of these have any kind of special effect. So unlike other legendaries, there's not much of a choice in what you're gonna do with these bows. They all do very similar damage. This one has bonus agility, which means you don't have to use an agility elixir to get your 15% damage bonus. But apart from that, these are all pretty irrelevant because the Kari bow is better than all of them, save for Reach of the Red Mother. So once you are able to craft Kari bows with a bow maker, it's going to trump anything else you'll find here. The only reason you want to be using these ones perhaps is if you're running a strength build and you want to be able to use a bow. You are going to be maximizing the damage from your buffs with a strength based bow. When it comes to arrows, we've got the Hollowbone arrow. You'll farm these same place you'll find the Hollowbone bow. 15 damage, 54% armor penetration, but the best arrows right now are Mandibles of Ashklaknaka, and these are found in the volcano from the spider mini boss. But yeah, these are your best unique arrows. Honorable mention, no, I'm not even going to talk about that. That stuff is not really relevant. Again, the meta is super bland right now, and combat is super bland. It is skillless base rolling, and it's really unfortunate. I've never seen the combat be so bland and so lifeless as it is now. I'm not holding out hope for any changes. I think they're happy with the way it is. I think it caters to the PvE audience. So I'm not holding out hope for any changes in that regard. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some changes with the stagger system, because I think at the moment they've gone too far in one direction of removing all hyper armor. And I think there's a chance for that to happen because it is still early days of the system being implemented. But when it comes to the prevalence of Q-lock, when it comes to weapons changing direction during attack, and the stamina changes, I think they are pretty set on those things. So unfortunately, I don't see any change coming in that regard. But yeah, hope you found this video helpful, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.